kitchen support really means, how you can help your shire, your barony, your friends, your event be successful from behind the scenes. And that's really what we're doing here. So there is a link to my handout in the chat. It is a PDF file. It's basically this presentation with the notes that I have at the bottom. And what we're going to focus on here in part 1 is the planning portion to the day of. And then part 2 will focus on the actual feast time. So let's hop in.
Before we do that, could
Yes.
we just, for posterity, make sure that everyone's okay with it being recorded, because it would be nice if it's recorded. And I saw somebody, because I saw somebody asking that in the chat.
I'm not seeing any handout. I don't know that anybody's seeing the handout.
Yes, it is being recorded. I just answered that in the chat. We also would like to start with asking everybody if they would please mute themselves so that we don't have a lot of interference or feedback. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat. If Sabina when she has the PowerPoint on, she cannot see the chat, so I'll be asking the questions. Unless you want to ask your own questions when it's a break or an appropriate time, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question. It's hard sometimes when everybody talks over each other, so that's all. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so the first thing that I talk to people about is I want you to assess yourself on what you have to give to your feastocrats, your feast stewards, things like that. The biggest one is commitment. We find this a lot for folks, is level of commitment. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not there, that's fine. Whatever your commitment level is, whether full out, I'm here all day, 13 hours, or hey, look, I can just chop some vegetables for a little while, or whatever, that's fine. But as long as you are committed and you make that commitment, then please keep up with that commitment. Because when you start doing that either before the planning or the day of or things like that, they're doling out the tasks to their folks, to their subcommittees, to those kinds of folks. And when you renege on that for whatever reason, it's really hard for the feast stewards to reabsorb that or to redistribute it at the last moment. So just want to put a big word in there about commitment. That's something that we see quite a bit. The next one is availability. Assess your availability. Are you available during the event? Are you available before the event? Are you available after the event? Can you do both? Can you not do both? That's fine. Again, any of these times that you're available to help with kitchen support, menu creation, subcommittee meetings, any of that stuff, just, gathering supplies from storage, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you know how available you are. And hand in hand with that is your participation level. All of these are kind of interwoven, these first three here. Your participation level can be, hey, I'm at this event and I'm going to be running a list table and I'm going to be doing this today, but I have this hour in between this time and this time where I can come and clean dishes or chat or help do something here or whatever the case may be. Just make sure that if you're available and that's your level of participation and you commit to it, that you stay with it. Next one is your physical ability. What can you physically do? I've worked with folks that don't have a lot of physical ability. I have two kids, one's 8 and one's 5, and they want to be with me wherever I'm at. So the 8-year-old is really good at chopping vegetables, but the 5-year-old is not. So I make my 5-year-old run. Hey, can you go get this? Hey, you see this? I need one of these. Hey, can you do these things? Even in my own kitchen at home. So know what your physical ability is. Do you not like to work with knives? Do you really not like to be around heat in the in the kitchen, like next to a big oven or a warmer or things like that. Know what your physical abilities are and what you can do. Also know what your mental capacity is. What kind of tasks work well for you? Simple tasks, monkey see, monkey do. Okay? Do this, do this, do this. Demonstration type, that's fine. That's the way that my kids are. Are you a complicated person, like with my husband, or with somebody who is a little more versed in the kitchen? Hey, do this, wait 3 minutes, do this, hey, wait 3 minutes, do this. Are you a multi-level organizer? Is that your mental capacity? Hey, I've got to do this day, I got to do this day, I've got to do this day. And you can plan out 4 or 5 things, and your feast steward knows, hey, I can give them this whole set of tasks, and I know it's going to be done before the day. So assessing that will really help your feast stewards know what kind of assignments or tasks to put you on. And the last thing here, guys, is your limitations. Know what your limitations are. Not just what you're able to do, but what you can't. I found out for a long time, it is not good for me to stand on my feet for 12 hours a day helping in the kitchen, because the next 2 days after that, I can't stand very well. So either I have to have a chair, I have to have some other accommodations, or I have to limit the amount of time that I'm standing on my feet and doing stuff. So what are your limitations? Can you not be around a lot of hot stuff? You probably don't want to be serving or working out at a barbecue grill in July at a summer event. That may not be something that you can do. Maybe if you're doing something that involves cold, so maybe you don't take to the cold very well. So just know, again, your physical abilities, your mental capacities, and also know your limitations. Okay? So once you do a self-assessment, the next thing is really just getting involved. How do you get involved? Well, the first thing you do is volunteer. Whether you have helium hand, whether you just enjoy volunteering, whether you go to meetings or things like that, if you want to get involved in the kitchen, it's really, really easy. It's not as hard as people think. So go to those Shire and Barony meetings, check Facebook posts, email groups, asking for volunteers, looking for things like that, from the beginning of the event planning all the way until a few days before, or contact the feast stewards. Just say, hey, I want to do something. Here's what I think I can do, or I'm not sure what I can do. What do you need help with? The second way is typically what happens to me. You're voluntold. The first one is you may be an officer of your barony or your shire or your canton or whatever else that's hosting, and you are expected to be there. So you're not sure what you can do. You didn't take an official job. This is one way to help out and still have a good level of participation available in other areas of the event that you may need. Okay. In addition to that, you can have what I call the pact. I have a blood pact with Isabel de la Hoya. Anytime she is a feast steward, I am automatically her hall steward. That's the way it is. I have that kind of pact with somebody else. If I'm a feast steward, they're my hall steward. I know that I can count on them for that particular job, and we'll go through that in part 2. But you may have that with somebody. You work well together. You know how well you work together. That's just what you do. Or in my case, and maybe in a few other cases, you own a yellow belt because you are protégé to a pelican. And I voluntold via up here, I don't know how many times. When I've gone to an event and they're like, hey, you're wearing a yellow belt, come help me do this. I'm like, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And I'll walk off and do it because I know that yellow belt means that I am always available to help within my capacity. So I get voluntold a lot. So, not that that's a bad thing. I absolutely love it. I wouldn't be a protege if I didn't enjoy the service and I didn't love the society and the drink. The last one is see a need, fill a need. Just jump in. I've had this happen mainly at out of kingdom events. I actually started in Glen Aubin a long time ago and played for about a year and then didn't play for a long time, and then got back in when I met my husband in Callantyre. So when we went down there for a friend of mine's knighting in Glen Aubin, they had a sink filled with dishes and they couldn't find another dish. They couldn't find anything else. So I jumped in and all I did for 6 hours was rewash all of their dishes, all their major cookware, all their pans, all the stuff that they needed because they didn't have somebody. That was not something they found as an essential job, but that's what they needed. And I really enjoyed it. I got 3 new friends off of Facebook. We talked to each other and I got to know new people in my old kingdom. So that really helped. So getting involved is super easy, guys. Again, not a problem. So I'm going to pause here just for a minute on your commitment levels, on your self-assessment, and your getting involved before we go any further, and ask if anybody has any questions real quick.
So with some of that self-assessment stuff, any thoughts on how you should alter that assessment depending on whether that is a event that your local group, Barony, is putting on and it's really close by versus something you might have to travel more to help out with?
That's going to really depend on what I consider your commitment level or your participation level and whatever your mental capacity is. So when I had gone to Glen Aubin, it was not to go to work in a kitchen. It was to go to see my friend get knighted, which I knew wasn't going to happen until evening court. There wasn't a lot of classes or other events. I wasn't heralding at a list field. My husband wasn't fighting. Our kids weren't with us. So I found myself with some free time and it was available. Normally with our local events, like the first time that I moved up here and Feast of Eagles was going on, I had already planned to be a server that night. I had already planned on doing several things at the event, and I knew what my commitment level was there, and I found myself with some extra time, so I jumped in the kitchen to help out. So it depends on what you go there to plan to do. Sometimes you want to participate to a high degree in your own events or things that are close. Sometimes you go and you just find that you have that free time and you just know what your abilities are and what you can do. It's really easy to chop vegetables. It's really easy to chat. It's really easy just to check in on the kitchen and make sure that the feast stewards are hydrated, have food. Have they stopped to eat? Have they taken a break in 15 minutes or 20 minutes? Just to step away from the kitchen so that they can reassess other things they do. That's a big thing, is stress management. They don't have the time to do that, or they don't feel like they have the time to do it. Let me rephrase that. They don't feel like they have the time. I've walked into a kitchen and seen the feastocrat cry, given them a shot of Bacardi and said, hey, I will take over for 15 minutes. You chill out in the middle of a feast. Okay? So I would say, based on what your commitment level is, based on what your participation level is and your availability, yeah. Any other questions?
There's one here from Birla about is it possible to commit to helping at all with a baby strapped to them?
Yeah. There is. There are a lot of things that you can do when you have a kid strapped, whether they're in the front or they're in the back or in one of the slings. There's a lot of things that you can do. If you're going to do that and you want to work in the kitchen, because a lot of this does preparation up too. You can help with menu creation. You can help with research. You can help with consulting. You can help with running. In other words, you can go to the storage, you can take inventory, you can run to the store, you can do any of those things either the day of or before any of those things. You can help run some kind of subcommittee, or you can help put together a remove. The day of, you can chop vegetables. I would say probably put an apron on. You can sit there and help just gather ingredients around. You can move things around if you want to. You can sit there and be what I call stress management. And again, make sure that the Feastocrats are taking time to stay hydrated, take time to stay fed. You can do the gopher position. There's a lot of things that you can do where you don't have to actually be in the kitchen cooking around hot appliances or anything else when you have a kid. There's a lot. There's a lot.
I went to a feast where they were making garlic chicken, and they needed people to stick the cloves of garlic into the chicken. And with a baby strapped to your back, that's easy.
Yep, it is. All right, so we'll hop back in for the stages of preparation that are there. First, and I talked about this a little bit in answering the questions, you have your brainstorming stage. This is where you get your menu creation, your recipe research. For those of you who want to do a really, really, really period feast, and you're going to Medieval Cookery, you're going to the good, I say the Good Bakery, that's not right. There's some good recipe website. I don't know. I don't do a lot of research because I don't do the actual feasts. But if that's your jam and that's what you want to do, then that may be your particular task in helping the feast stewards get to their next level. They may be saying, hey, I want to do this, or I want to concentrate on this, but either by their job or by time constraints, they might not have the chance to do this. So this may be something that you can do. It's help in that brainstorming phase. You may be in the collaborative phase where you're helping them put together removes, saying, hey, these flavor profiles go together, so this would be a great remove here, followed by this remove here, followed by this remove here, based on the theme, based on the cooking type, based on whatever it is that they're trying to convey with their feast. The other thing is that you may be working hand in hand with the other officers, especially the exchequer, in cost and budget analysis. You may be doing, you may work in that particular retail industry at a wholesaler, at a grocery store, at another niche market that you can get special ingredients, or you have a garden or something of that nature, and you're saying, hey, here's what our cost is, here's what you want to do with these removes, let's look at what we can do here. Other parts in collaborating, sorry, we'll go back, is for those of you who need ingredient substitution. I know that Perez in an earlier today had said that your significant other is a vegetarian and has some dietary restrictions. I did an entire feast that was for two things completely gluten-free, because the Viscountess of Abacal at the time had come down for this knighting, and she has major celiac. So I tried to make sure enough stuff was there that she would be able to enjoy a feast, since the person getting knighted was her significant other. So you may be called to do that. I know that I have my go-to vegan person. I have my go-to celiac person. I have my go-to, I'm thinking, hey, here's what I want to do. But if somebody were going to come to a feast, or, hey, I'm doing this remove, how can I make this more friendly for you or this person or whatever else? The third part of that is practicing. You may be in there working in a kitchen before, doing taste testing, making those tasting plates, doing those things. You may be at that organization level of mental capacity where your feast steward has said, hey, I need to make sure that these jobs are filled. And so you're going through finalizing the job assignments, double checking on everybody's commitments, making sure that everybody's in place for the day of or at the day of. and those kind of things. So you're getting down to the nitty gritty and you're getting to that practicing portion. The last one is actually creating, and this is mainly the day before, the day of. I know in the Shire that I'm close to here, they do a day before prep. They cut a bunch of the vegetables, they get a lot of things ready, they do that stuff. And so several folks take off the day before from work and they may pre-cook soups or pre-make breads or do some of those things for the next day because there may not be enough space in the kitchen that you're working in. So that may be something that you can help do before. When I had done the preserved pears for the Gulf Wars feast that Isabel had mentioned in the snacks class, I'd done that for Queen's Prize, but made enough that we had 4 Gulf Wars. And so I made those days in advance. The one and only feast that I did some spiced apples, and I canned those months in advance. So, you know, and I had a few friends came over and I was showing them the canning process. So I was actually teaching while I was doing that, a modern process. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't doing that at a medieval course, but, you know, there may be some of those things that you can help with the creation phase. So at any of these times, again, there's ways to jump in, and for the person who had the baby question, any of these things can be done during that time too. So when you get to the day of, and a little bit before, there's these specific, what I call supporting roles that you can be a part of. Obviously, before you can be that researcher, you can be that consultant. Like I said, with that ingredient substitution, researching is your jam. You're just really good at it. That may be the role that you're called on to do. The other one is the supplies coordinator. You can be the person that they say, hey, I need these supplies from a wholesale club. I need these supplies from this place. I need you to go to the Shire storage and get these trenchers, these trays, these pitchers, these whatever. You may be getting them out of your own stuff. You may be helping the feast steward get it out of their own stuff. Whatever the supplies are, you may be that coordinator. The other one is the food prepper. You may be, say, hey, you're going to be doing a root vegetable type of dish where they have carrots and turnips and potatoes and whatever else. And you know potatoes are brown, but the carrots and the turnips and the parsnips, they won't. So you can pre-cut those and put them in your fridge the day before, couple of days before, or you may be the person doing it there on site. Last minute substitutions, something like that. You can be doing that, again, day before, day of. You may be part of the cleaning crew. The cleaning crew is the one that, like I said before, I came in and washed dishes. So you may be washing the dishes, you may be cleaning an area to start something new. So if meat was used here and they're going to make a vegetarian dish, that needs to be cleaned, washed, sanitized, and then moved on. But the other kitchen help does not have time to do that. That may be what you're doing. Okay, so that's an important role, being in the cleaning crew. I know it seems like it's very small, but it is essential, especially when you have a very small kitchen and there's not a lot of space to prep the stage to do anything else. So these are definitely great supporting roles. As I've mentioned a couple of times, stress management. It is stressful to run a feast. I've done it before. I've run an inn, but a lot of times there is stress management. What goes with my blood pact with Isabel is stress management. So if she needs anything, you may be that go-to person for your feast steward or for somebody else who's helping. You may de facto become that when you find yourself that reliable person. So they're like, I don't know what to do. I can't do this. This is breaking down. The oven didn't do this. Okay, cool. I got this. We're going to make it work. Here's how we can make it work. Or, hey, give me a few minutes. I'll come up with a solution. You work on this. So stress management is a huge thing. It's really awesome to have that person who is your number 2 or your 2 number 2s. And you can say, all right, I need 5 minutes to figure out what I'm going to do. Or, hey, you need to take 5 minutes. I will figure it out for you. And the last one is your gopher or your monkey. This one's a great one for kids. This one's a great for people who've never been in the kitchen before, not sure what they're doing. We have a young gentleman who several times have come in the kitchen and been like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, hey, here's your gopher, here's your monkey stuff. We're going to teach you to chop vegetables. We're going to teach you how to wash and sanitize. We're going to teach you how to run this convection oven, because sometimes it's different. It doesn't work the same way as other ones. Hey, here's how this warmer works. Hey, here's how we're going to plate. Hey, here's how we're going to do this or that. So this one's a great one for those who enjoy simple tasks, who have a very small amount of time, maybe an hour or two or something like that, where you can just get a few things off of your plate. That works really, really well. So all of these supporting roles definitely have a place when you're preparing, looking for, getting up to, and to the day of the actual feast, preparing during the event.
So when you say food prepper, as in chopping up stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay,
There's-
that was the question.
So as in chopping, as in gathering, as in for those of you who want to like make bread on site, I know we've done that at some of our feasts here in Calentier. So you may be on this bread team. So you're prepping that and doing that. And while that's proving, you're doing something else. I've come in at the last minute and literally they needed to have a flavored butter. So I was making the flavored butter and putting them in little cute medallions and sticking them in a freezer. That's a type of food prepping. Somebody needs this thing mixed for this dish later. Okay, do that. When I was in Batavia during a coronation and Heidi needed help, I was like, hey, this is great. She's like, I don't have anybody to do this. Awesome. I can do that. You just tell me the 4 or 5 ingredients you need and I can take it from there. So that's really what food preparation is preparing the food. And depending upon what it is, they can be simple or multi-level or complicated or whatever that feast steward needs. Other questions about supporting roles? Awesome. That's pretty much it, guys. There's not a whole lot that it takes for being kitchen support. I'm going to pop this link. Okay. How do I stop sharing my screen? No, not stop video. Whatever. There it is. Stop sharing. Okay. So I'm going to put the file back up here for my handouts. So for those of you who didn't get it before, there you are. There's the file from handout. If you want to be kitchen support, like I said, we talked about a lot of things all the way up until the day of. And from here, we can just have a roundtable discussion. I can answer any questions that you may have. I can now see the chat. So please feel free to unmute yourself and let it rip.
Go look at the chat, Sabina.
I had a question for everyone, if that's okay.
Go for it.
So I'm fairly new to the SCA. I've been like kind of aware of the SCA since 2013, but I only started really playing and becoming active in the last year and a half. And so one of the things that I found really fun for me was to go into the kitchens and just say, hey, I'm here. Does anyone need help? And I've worked in about 3 or 4 now, different Feastcrats kitchens before helping with Feast, and all of them have different sorts of skill sets that they're looking for. So just this is a question I'm posing to everyone. What is a skill that would benefit, you think, as a general skill to know before you go into the kitchen that would help you, or you would be appreciative of somebody knowing going in?
So for me, and I'm Isabel de la Hoya, I'm the owner of Sabina's Blood Pact, apparently. For me, basic food safety and basic hygiene is unbelievably helpful. Not only just food safety and hygiene, but understanding things like just a little bit of allergen prevention. Things like, if this spoon's only for this pot, we really, really mean this spoon's only for this pot. You don't have to have official training or anything like that, but just even take a few minutes with the feast steward. Hey, what's the deal here? What are the different zones in your kitchen? There are maybe some areas where you're only prepping these things, if you're lucky enough to have a kitchen big enough for that.
Right.
Isabel, sorry, don't unmute. There is a question in chat on the food safety training, and I know that you could speak to that a little bit because you just took that.
Yeah, so I took the food safety training online a few weeks ago. It honestly wasn't anything I didn't already know. However, for me, holding the certificate for the next 3 years, yes, it was SafeServe. For the next 3 years, is pretty valuable, just to be able to say, hey, listen, if anyone's concerned, someone in the kitchen does have this, and they are the ones that's in charge of things like food safety. So it was online. It was less than $20. It took a couple hours.
I'm gonna answer Tosin's here. He says thoughts on for the steward about organizing volunteers. That isn't that hard. The first thing is obviously put a call out during the meetings. So your shire, your baronial meetings, email lists, Facebook. Your friends will help you quite a bit, but that's one thing to get volunteers before. The day of, you can have a sign-up list for servers. If somebody says, hey, I've got some spare time, you can let them know at gate, hey, we need these things. So they'll know quite a few folks that come in that are reliable, that can help you do whatever. And they'll be like, hey, have you checked with the feast stewards? That's a way that you can get volunteers too. And then sometimes you'll have random folks that literally just walk in and be like, hey, do you need any help? But if you're looking for something prior to day of those things, definitely use your social medias, definitely use your groups. If you have a couple of steady folks that you want to say, hey, can you reach out to some folks for me? Then delegate that task too, and they fill up pretty quick. They fill up pretty quick. To Grace, yes, you can probably get some unofficial kitchen training. You can ask your feast stewards to do that. You can ask them to do a class. There's a lot of different, as Isabel had said, there's the online official classes, there's YouTube videos about things. You can also find those posters, online that say, hey, here's some of your safety guidelines. Here's some of these things that we need to look at. But your minimum stuff is be sure that you're washing your hands. For me, I don't like to touch raw meat, so I always have a bunch of gloves. I want to be careful about, what knives I'm using when I'm with those gloves, so that they don't cut or tear or any of those kinds of things. Just some of those basic things there. Make sure that you have your clean towels, or you have other towels, or you're using paper towels. So if you're washing your hands or you're cleaning up an area, that's going into either a bleach bucket or a sanitation bucket or something of that just helps cut down on that cross contamination or potential, allergy contamination, or at this point in time, coronavirus contamination, which that's not happening. We're hoping. I mean, virtually, I'm not coughing on anybody here, so that makes sense. Other questions?
I think
Ezekiel wanted to know about cooking outside. Is there any special skills needed for that? Other than it takes long, no matter how long you think it takes longer than you think it takes.
There's not necessarily any specific skills for cooking outside other than knowledge. My husband does a lot of cooking outside. So how are you cooking outside? Are you using a traditional pit like in a Hawaiian luau? Or are you using a la cocina? Are you doing an open fire pit roasting rotisserie? Are you using propane on a grill? Are you using charcoal as a grill? Are you smoking? What kind of things are you gonna need? And as you said, yeah, whatever you think you're gonna need for cooking time, you're probably gonna need a lot more. Definitely want to have your big outdoor grill type of instruments, and the biggest thing is a meat thermometer. You're gonna need that. I found out that works a lot because you don't want to keep making a bunch of cuts into your meat to see if it's done. So knowing your cooking times for your various meats and proteins, making sure it's not getting overcooked, and those kinds of things. It would be better to undercook it and then stick it in a warmer prior to than it would be to overcook it, for the exception of chicken and pork because salmonella trichinosis. But any of those, like those meats, typically I've done, if I'm doing any kind of beef dish or something like that, I will undercook it slightly and stick it in a warmer for an hour to 90 minutes beforehand, so it can still do that slow cooking on the inside as you're prepping all the other dishes and stuff. Because typically your meat's not going to be in your first remove. It'll be in your second, third, or possibly fourth remove.
Sabina, I know that so Isabel and Evelyn and I were going to have Feast of Eagles, but of course it's been canceled. But we were tossing around, and that's why we were looking at the ServSafe certification and everything. One of the brainstorming ideas that our Shire came up with was the cook actually coming up with a short list of do's and don'ts while in their kitchen, like, just food safety things, such as wash your hands in between each task type. Like if you're chopping the carrots and you go to chop the onions, wash your hands in between. I mean, honestly, it's vegetable to vegetable, but still it does not hurt, and it does a lot of benefit to wash your hands in between. So have you ever had a short list of what kind of rules that you have for your kitchen? Do you think that would be beneficial for your staff to use?
Yes. In my experience as one who's been over the other kitchen crews and things like that, I haven't had to worry about that because most of the young people who come in, or the inexperienced folks, I typically have them right next to me and assign them one or two particular tasks. Because a lot of the things, whenever you're looking at the different supporting roles, you can see how they get a little more advanced. It's going to be based on your trust level with that particular feast steward. And so that can happen over a span of days or years, or maybe you're just that person who can come in and kind of do it off the street. But having that is, especially when I work with young people, is saying, hey, don't forget to do this, or hey, don't forget to do this. If you're not going to do this, come and find me and let's do a different task. And I find that a little more of that hand holding helps. But I'll definitely refer the remainder of your question to somebody who's a more seasoned feast steward than me.
It looks like you are the feast steward.
I'm never a feast steward. I'm just a monkey runner. Okay, I'm a hall steward. I've definitely been a hall steward. For the person who had mentioned before that they have a server captain who wrangles servers and things like that, that's a great thing. It doesn't matter what the title is. as hall steward, what falls underneath for me when I do that, and we'll talk about it in part 2, is taking care of the hall, everything outside the kitchen, which includes servers. So that's typically what I put on the hall steward, and I'll say, hey, here's what your responsibilities are. Can you handle this? Great, that's you. If you can't, then I'll find somebody separate to do that. For the person who ran a feast outside because they didn't want to pay for the kitchen, that's when I'd go back and say, budget dictates that we need this. Sometimes you have to put your feet down for that and just say, hey, look, guys, we're going to have to pay for this, because not having running water, not having fridges. I mean, if you want to do something completely period like that, and that's what you discussed and that's what you planned on doing because you want to have a no refrigeration, no sinks type of thing, then that's one thing. But if that's not something that you were expecting, then that's definitely something that you need to, as a feast steward or as somebody who's helping do site assessments and things like that, and budget consultations and all of that in the pre-planning period, you need to say, hey, look, for safety measures, for this, for that, we need to have these things, and we're going to have to work it in the budget somehow.
Say, Adelaide?
If you're looking for an experienced feast crack, I'm your Huckleberry.
Yes.
45 years I've been doing this. I've done more feasts as feast steward than most people have been to events. So ask away.
I think Tosin had something for Adelaide. Hold on. Adelaide was getting a question from Tosin just a minute ago. Where'd he go? He fell off my screen.
Here. Sorry.
Oh, there he is.
I was also going to say I've done about 15 feasts ranging in size up to 250 people. And I missed the beginning of that question of what do other people think about feast stewarding side.
I think, well, so my question was based off of like the feast steward having basically a short list of like rules for my kitchen, just like maybe some safety rules or some, just the way they run the kitchen. Like if they're very particular about how the carrots are chopped, then maybe they might want to make a note of that instead of let somebody chop them the way they know how to chop it, and then, you know, all hell breaks loose. So, I mean, I know that's a very picky thing, but like, if you have like your own personal idiosyncrasies, then maybe you should just write a little note and say thanks for volunteering. And I'd like you to, you know, and that way the feast steward's not, or yeah, the feast steward's not like having to stand over everybody's shoulders all day long going, what are you doing here? So, and you know, did you wash your hands? That kind of thing. Is the meat the right temperature? Stuff like that.
And it's a very good point because everybody runs a kitchen in a very different fashion. And I run a kitchen where my goal is to do everything that no one else wants to do. So if I'm washing dishes all day, I'm a happy person. Because if there are people who want to help, because volunteer time is valuable, and you want to give those volunteers the best possible experience. And like you say, if you have a perfect way that you want your things chopped, you better give that instruction.
Right.
But personally, I've never been all that concerned. And so I'm
one of the really easy feast stewards because I usually have like kids, and so minister of youth too. I usually have kids in my kitchen that are doing the simpler tasks, and then I have adults in the kitchen that are doing the more complex tasks, and they're usually asking me like, is this okay? Is this okay? Is this the way you want it? Should I do it this way? Should I do it that way? And I'm like, I think you're doing an excellent job. Thank you so much for joining us in the kitchen, and you're doing great. And that's how I like to run my kitchen. But the way some of the volunteers are like scared that I'm gonna like crack a whip on them or something. I'm like,
But they
that's not
must have run into the lady that I feasted at, that I had worked for. She actually didn't want anybody in her kitchen. She was going to do it all by herself.
I
And
have.
if you
I have
set
seen
foot
that.
in the kitchen, she yelled at you.
Yeah,
Oh.
I've seen the kitchen stewards that are like, this is my kitchen and everything that comes out of the kitchen is basically in my name and it's got to be perfect, because if it's not perfect, so therefore you better be on my volunteer list, you better be somebody I know. If you aren't, then get out of my kitchen, you don't belong here. You might mess something up. I don't know. And I don't know how those people keep volunteers. I mean, personally,
Yeah. The people that are expecting yes, chef.
yeah.
And
Yes.
it's a very different experience. Go ahead.
I have been in one of those with a guy who was like, oh, I've had all this professional training and whatever else. And I finally remembered like all of my Hell's Kitchen episodes where I remembered to say heard when he was like, does anybody get that? I'm like, heard. But I know what you mean. And a lot of times for some people, it can be like that. I try to find the folks that are lax. Also, I'm that person when you have a bunch of new people and a few seasoned folks that have played the kitchen support role and whatnot, I may pull that feast steward aside and say, look, if you don't want to run everybody out of here, you're going to have to chill out. Like, I'll be happy to run that for you if you would like, but you're going to have to chillax or you're going to start running people out or people are going to be in tears, because I remind them, this is a volunteer organization. This is a volunteer position. It doesn't matter if somebody came in to stir a pot for 3 seconds while you went to the bathroom. That should be appreciated. They do not have to take their time out of their busy schedule to help you. They do not have to burn their day, their vacation, their fun time with their friends to help you. And a lot of times that speech gets them to shut up real quick.
And I'm very often, I know you have a blood pact with Isabel Sabina, but I have partnered with Isabel a lot for a lot of feasts. And I think that if she needs me to wrangle the feast stewards or do the feast servers, then I will do that. That's one less thing she has to worry about. She doesn't need to, I don't know. Isabel, do you worry about the servers if I'm wrangling them?
No, I'm usually just worried about everything catching on fire. in the kitchen.
Okay. I may or may not have a torch at my desk right now, but hey, okay. I've got torch safety is a thing, okay?
I can give you one really good piece of advice when you are feast stewarding or when you go in to volunteer. Have the feast steward show you what they want. Don't try to tell them how you want the carrots cut, because the words won't mean the same thing to them that they mean to you. I show everybody, I want my turnips cut this way. Chop, 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 chop. I do one, and then I watch them do one, and then I turn them loose and let them go. If you're a volunteer in a kitchen, don't try to interpret the feast steward's words. Ask them to show you what they want. And a good feast crat with half a brain is going to say, oh, you're a keeper.
And one of the comments here in chat is that candy is always good to have in the kitchen. And so I started doing feasts in Mid-Realm, and the feast steward I always worked with, she always made sure that the servers were fed, that the kitchen, the kitchen helpers were all fed almost before the feast even began. And it's because you know that those people are going to be on their feet, working their butts off for you, and they are going to need to be fed just as much as the feast steward themselves. So not only make sure that the feast steward is fed and watered all day, but make sure that the people helping you are the same, because that really does help with morale in the kitchen.
All right, so we've got about 3 minutes until noon. I'm going to go ahead and share my handout one more time for those of you who may have come in a little bit later, so that you can download that if you'd like. Well, the presentation is the handout too, with a bunch of my notes there. If you have any questions, my email's on there. Feel free to shoot it to me. Other than that, guys, go enjoy some more classes. I appreciate you guys being here and learning to be kitchen support.
Thanks, Sabina.
An
Thank you.
excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for running this.
Hey, thanks for coming.
Part 2's at 4, right?
Yes, ma'am. It is.
Awesome. Be back then.
Awesome. All right.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I've been trying to. You had your chat going, and it's like, you don't need me. I just turned off. Thank you so very much. It was a very good session. I think you got a lot of good questions. Yay! Help for Feastocrating. Yeah.
And I hope that it prompts more people to want to jump in and help. So hopefully that'll be a thing, and people will find that it'll be more seamless for the Feastocrats, the feast stewards, because sometimes that it's a stressful thing to do.
Yes, it is. And a lot of times, I know a lot of people get in their head that if you volunteer for the kitchen, you've like dedicated your entire day, and they really needed to hear the, hey, an hour, 20 minutes, whatever, kind of just come check. They needed to hear that, because I think that gives a different perspective. I think that was good.
Well, I mean, especially when you're working with kids, mine have the, attention span of a gnat on crack. So if I can keep them for 20 minutes, that's great. But other than that, yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. I do not believe I am your monitor this afternoon, so thank you very much. It was wonderful to hear, and we've worked in the kitchen before together, so yay, awesome.
So we'll have to do it again whenever we open back up as a kingdom.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.